So today we're going to do one of my favorite things to do, and that is word problems using systems. Now I know it's hard to believe that somebody would say fun and word problems in the same sentence, but when it comes to word problems, systems is the way to go because we get to use two variables. You're going to see that it's not too bad to set it up, which is the hardest part of word problems. Okay, so here we go. We have 6 problems we're going to do. This note sheet can be found in the folder for today that this video is in. So if you're looking for this note sheet, it can be found in this folder. So here we go. A concession stand. At a concession stand, 9 slices of pizza and 5 soft pretzels cost $33.25. If the 4 slices of pizza and 6 soft pretzels cost $19.50, what is the cost of a soft pretzel? So notice that we have 2 things here we're talking about. We're talking about pretzels. We're going to call those P. No, we're not. We're going to call it Z because we also have pizza. And then we have pizza. Oh gosh, they both could have a Z in it. Wow. Let's rename these again. So we have pizza. We're just going to call them X and Y, people. So we have a pretzel, which is X, and a pizza, which is Y. And as long as we define them up here, it's not anything too difficult. So with this one, it goes straight forward. Look at this. 9 slices of pizza, 5 pretzels. Here we go. So my equation, 9 of the pizza plus 5 of the pretzel is equal to $33.25. And then we have 4 slices of pizza plus 6 of the pretzel is equal to $19.50. See how easy those are to set up? Now this is a good one we get to practice. I'm going to solve this one by elimination. Substitution is not convenient to use unless you have one of your terms with a coefficient of 1. So we're going to use elimination on this one. I'm going to do a couple with you, and then later on you're going to get to just do them on your own. So looking at this one, what strikes me is I like both of these numbers. It doesn't really matter. I can multiply this one by a 9, this one by a 4, or this one by a 6, and this one by a 5. One of them is going to be a negative, and it doesn't matter. For some reason, I'm leaning towards the 5 and the 6, so I'm going to multiply through by a negative 6. I'm going to multiply through by 5. And obviously, we're going to need calculators for this. So this is my squiggly line, because I'm going to write out what these are equal to. So I have negative 54y plus negative 30x is equal to negative 199.5 97.50. Okay, now we're going to add. Divide by negative 34. And I get a decimal. So I'm going to go back and check my work. So I found my error. I'm not sure what I did the first time, but my error was this was supposed to be 102. Negative 102. Then when I divide by a negative 34, I get 3. Okay, so I knew there was an error because it came out to be this big long decimal. So what does that mean? Am I done? Oh gosh. So here's a strategy I should have thought of. So what that means is that I have what is the cost? So the cost for a pizza is $3. Well, if I would have eliminated the other variable, I would have been done by now. Do you see that? So had I eliminated the y instead of the x, I would have been solving for the pretzel. I would have been done, but I didn't. It's no big deal. I'm just going to plug that in. So now I'm going to find out what the other one is. I have the pizza, so 9 times 3 plus 5x is equal to 33.25. Minus 27 from both sides. And when I divide by 5, I get X is equal to $1.25. So what does that mean? That means that the pretzel cost $1.25. Okay? So these are my answers right here. All it asked for those was a soft pretzel. I just happened to give them both because I already had it. Okay? Let's look at another type. Oh, number 2, this one's coins. This one's a cool one because, well, okay. Aiden has a collection of 63 nickels and quarters in her piggy bank. If the total value of the coins is $10, how many nickels does he have? Okay, so what we need to understand is that we already know some of the information just by going in. And look at what the totals are. So what are we talking about? The two things we're talking about nickels. That's an easy one. That's an N. And we're talking about quarters. See how we're talking about those two things, nickels and quarters. We have a total of money and we have a total of coins. And this is very common to have a total of the items. So here, total of coins. And then we also have a total of money. Okay, so, and this is a very common problem. It might be movie tickets. It was also a common way to present this, but also coins. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the total of each of these, and that's going to make our sentences. So if I look at the total of coins, that's 63. Well, how many nickels do I have? N. And how many quarters? Q. And that's what is so beautiful about systems, is that I don't have to define one in terms of the other. Now, as far as the value, the money, this is where you come in. How much is a nickel worth? 5 cents, exactly. So I'm going to have to, so the total money, I'm going to have 0.05 times nickels, because that's 5 cents, plus 0.25 quarters. And that whole thing is equal to $10.75. Now, this one might actually lend itself to doing substitution because I could solve for one variable and plug it into the other. I can always use elimination because I can just multiply the top one by a negative of this number or a negative of this number so that I can then just use elimination. Okay, I'm going to do this one by substitution just to show you substitution again and refresh your memory. But if you want to, go ahead and solve this one by elimination. Again, you would just multiply this by a negative of this number or a negative of this number. Multiply that top equation. So I'm going to move it over, and since I want to find the number of nickels, I'm going to make this so that I can just solve for nickels. So I'm going to have this in terms of nickels. So that means I'm going to solve for quarters. And don't worry about that too much. That was probably a little more than what I needed to. So I'm going to subtract an N from both sides. And I get quarters is equal to 63 minus N. This is what I'm going to plug in place of this. So now I'm going to write this equation out. And I'm going to put in what I have. That's my, okay, wrong way. I have Q that I have to substitute in for, okay? Now I make my parentheses. And now I plug in what my quarters are. And now we're going to solve this equation. I'm going to let you try that, do that on your own. Use a calculator, of course. That's not a problem. So hopefully you went through and you did solving the equation, because it's always good to practice solving equations. You multiplied through by 0.25. You distributed through, I should say. So we come up with this. And just be very careful with those decimals. It's easy. Combined like terms, so negative 0.20. Subtracted 15.75. I have negative 0.20 and a negative 5. And that's the reason, watch your negatives too. These are going to work themselves out because you know you can't have a negative number of nickels. So not a problem there. Where'd my variable go? There it is. Okay, so how many nickels do I have? When I divide here, I have 25. Okay, and the good news is I could actually stop right there. How many nickels is all they're asking for? So I can just say 25 nickels. And I'm done. Now, for me, that's just awkward, so I'm going to actually plug that back in. So I have 25 nickels plus how many quarters is equal to 63. I subtract 25. And I know they didn't ask for it, but it's just, I don't know. I just kind of like to know what those are. So I'm going to go ahead and finish it. That's 38. So I have 38 quarters. And again, this is all they're asking for, but I have 38 quarters. Okay? Good. Let's look at another one. And these are two very typical types of problems where I just go right across and I set up the equation. And here is where I have the total of whatever the object is and the amount of money. So those are very typical problems. Okay. For a 2-day rental, it costs $45 to rent a surfboard and $60 to rent a paddleboard. On a certain weekend, the surf shop rented 44 total surfboards and paddleboards and made $2,265. How many paddleboards were rented? Okay, so do you see how this one is just the same as what we did last time? We have a total number of objects and we have a total money. Okay, we have two objects we're talking about. We're talking about a surfboard. I'm going to call that one F for surfboard because my S's and B's look like numbers. And we're going to call this one P for paddleboard. Okay, so notice we're going to do the total number of objects. Last time it was coins, this time it's paddleboards and surfboards, and we're going to do a total money. And I'd like you to pause your video right now and try writing out those equations on your own. So if I'm going to do a total number of objects, I'm going to have F plus P is equal to 44. Now total money, I have to go back to how much the surfboard was. That costs 45 for the surfboard, and it costs 60 for the paddleboard. Okay? Again, you can solve this one either by substitution or elimination. It lends itself. Substitution works fine because I have a coefficient of 1 on both of these variables. This time I'm going to solve it by elimination because I like elimination better. And for me, it's just faster. So I'm going to multiply that top equation through by a negative 45. Okay, so that's the way I'm going to do mine. I'm telling you that just because if you want to have your steps look like mine, I'm going to pause that. We're going to do this on our own. Go. Okay, so I multiplied through by a negative 45. There's my first equation, negative 45x plus negative 45p is equal to negative 1,980. When I add those two equations, I get 15p is equal to 285. So p is equal to 19. Okay, so what does that mean? That means the number of paddleboards. So I have 19 paddleboards that were rented out that day. Now, it only asked for paddleboards, so I am actually done. That is my answer. If I wanted to find the other one, of course, I could just plug that in and find out my answer. And that's telling me that I had 25 surfboards. So 25 surfboards. Okay. Questions? Okay. Now this next one, Haley and Nicole stopped at the bookstore for extra supplies. Haley had 8 pencils and 3 folders and spent $10.39. Nicole bought 5 pencils and 4 folders and spent $10.51. How much does a folder cost? This is the one where we just write straight through. This is just like number 1 on the page before. So I'm going to pause my video. I want you to pause your video, and I want you to go and write these equations down. If you need help, look back at number 1. But I think you'll see you just go straight across, okay? And identify the two things. Go. So again, I hope you paused your video and wrote down the two equations for this system. And again, you can refer to number 1 if you want to know. This is what I came up with, and this is what it is. I chose P for pencils and F for folders, and just moving across, 8 pencils, 3 folders equals 1039, 5 pencils, 4 folders equals 1051. This one obviously lends itself to elimination. I would not want to do this one by substitution. I'm going to go ahead and have you solve this. Come back in, unpause your screen, and you can check your answers. Go. I chose to eliminate the P this time, so I multiplied through by a negative 5 and a positive 8. When I did that, these were the two equations that I came up with. Then when I added, my P dropped out, and I have F left, and I came up with F being equal to $1.89. If you did it a different way, that is fine. You still would have come up with F being equal to $1.89. You might have solved for P first. That is fine. So if you want to pause your video, go back and check your work if you didn't come up with that. Now, I got lucky. How much does a folder cost? Yay, I found the folder, and the folder cost $1.89. If I would have gone through and found the pencil first, I would have just taken and plugged this back in and found what the folder was. So it doesn't make any difference. Don't worry about it if you have to do a few extra steps. correct work is more important than the number of steps, either way. Okay, let's go to the next page. The two word problems, word situations. The two word situations on this page deal with geometry. So that's pretty awesome, since next year you'll be taking geometry. The measure of an angle is 8 degrees less than 3 times the measure of another angle. If the two angles are supplementary, what is the measure of the larger angle? Wow, lots of information there. Okay, so we're talking, let's unpack this just a little bit. We have two angles. Okay, we have a smaller angle and a larger angle. Okay, we're just going to call them the L for larger. Dang, I wish I would have had a different number for smaller. So I'm going to use X for this one because I have bad handwriting. If you have good handwriting, feel free to use an S. So those are my two different angles. I need to know what supplementary means. You might have forgotten that two angles are supplementary if they add to 180 degrees. Okay, so the two angles add to 180. There's one of my equations. Yay, X plus L is equal to 180. Now, in order to get this one, I have to look at what's going on here. The measure of an angle is 8 degrees less than 3 times the measure of another angle. So what we need to determine is which one is the small one and which one is the big one. Well, notice this one says that the measure of an angle is 8 degrees less than 3 times the measure of another one. So if I'm taking 3 times, that's got to be the small one. So this is the small one, and this is the large one. Now what I can do is I can just go left to right. L is 8 degrees less than. So L equals 8 degrees less than. So less than, I'm going to flip it to the back 3 times the other one. That's not as obvious, and that goes back to what we had to do before, but that is our other equation. L equals 3x minus 8. Okay, what do you think this one lends itself to? Substitution, obviously, it's already set up. So this one's going to be pretty fast because you can plug it right in for substitution. I'm plugging this in for this right here. So I'm going to go x plus 3x minus 8. I know it's not necessary to put it in parentheses, but we're going to do that. Okay, solve those equations. Find out what those two angles are equal to. Go. So once you solve this equation, okay, you combine like terms here because remember those parentheses are just because that's what I plugged in, or I plugged in there. So I get 4x is equal to 188, x is equal to 47. So then I take that and I plug it into this the other equation. Could have plugged it into either one, but I took the easy one. 3 times 47 minus 8 is 133. So the larger angle is 133 degrees. Smaller one's 47. Okay, here we go. The length of a rectangular garden is 3 times less than its width. If the perimeter of the garden is 42 feet, what is the length? Oh, wow. Okay, I like to draw a picture on these so that I know what I'm talking about. I have a length and I have a width. And if I want to find the perimeter, I know to find the perimeter, I'm going to add all the sides. Or 2L plus 2W. And here, they tell us the perimeter is 42 feet. There's one equation. That's nice. Now I'm going to go back to this and do the same thing that I did up there. This says the length of the garden is. So length is 3 feet less than. We like those less thans because we make you switch it around. 3 feet less than. So we're going to put minus 3 twice its width. So there's our other equation. L, that's a cursive L because I have bad handwriting. I use a cursive L, is equal to 2W minus 3. Obviously, you're going to do this one by substitution. Go. So always remember with these videos, like if you're thinking, man, she went too fast on something, just pause, rewind, whatever you need to do so that you get those notes. Okay? So this is not division. That's a minus sign there. So for instance, on this, you might be going, what? Well, I took the length is equals 3 times less than twice the width. Okay, and you can always do that with a sentence. So we found out that width was 8. We're going to plug that back into L because that's what they're asking for is the length. 2 times 8 minus 3, 16 minus 3 is 13. So the length is 13, what were we in? Feet? Feet. Okay, there. So you're going to now go out and do some homework on your own, to some of these word problems to practice those. And again, if you have any questions, you know where to find us.